Let's talk about logical fallacies. I'll explain what they are, and then I'll give you guys examples of the ones that I run into the most often. A fallacy is basically using bad or faulty reasoning as the basis for your argument. It results in conclusions that make sense to you if you didn't notice the bad reasoning that got you there. For example, up until last month, I would have asserted that all watermelon is red on the inside. And the reason I would say that is because every watermelon I have ever encountered has been red on the inside. Without fail, 100% of the watermelon red on the inside. Now, if I were to say that to you with that reasoning, what's the first thing you're gonna say? Just because you haven't seen it before doesn't mean other colors don't exist, right? And that's correct. The fallacy that I'm employing is called the anecdotal fallacy. I am basing my conclusion on anecdotal evidence, just my own personal, very limited experiences on Earth. And my conclusion makes sense. I've been around a long time. I ain't never seen it. It probably isn't there. That makes sense if you don't factor in this large gaping hole in the logic. So what are some popular fallacies? Let's go ahead and hit the first one that everyone has seen and experienced before, the straw man fallacy. The straw man fallacy is when you refute a claim or argument that the other person did not make. If I were to say, boba tastes better than coffee, and you were to reply, oh, so I guess you just hate coffee. It seems like you got a problem with coffee. You have now created a straw man. Because now I got to explain to you why I don't hate coffee when that wasn't the point of the argument in the first place. Whenever you find yourself saying, I didn't even say that, that's usually what they've done. They've created a straw man. They're arguing that instead of your actual point. I usually refer to this as willful ignorance or intentional misunderstanding. People usually do this when your original point is difficult to wrestle with, and so they find another point that's easier to attack. Another extremely popular fallacy is the ad hominem fallacy. Ad hominem is an attempt to invalidate somebody's argument by attacking their character. If I were to say that bananas are a good source of potassium, and you were to come back with, you don't know anything about potassium, you take nudes for a living. That's an ad hominem. You're not addressing my claim at all. You're just trying to come at me in order to invalidate what the claim was. People usually do this when they're assholes or just not good at debating. Because if you disagree with somebody's stance or a point or a claim, you should be able to articulate that regardless of who said it. So who they are as a person, what they say or do should not matter in your rebuttal. But if you see a debate about a topic turning into insults about each other, that's what that is. It's called an ad hominem. This video is getting kind of long. I might do like one or two more. One I get all the time, the no true Scotsman fallacy. This is when you protect a generalized statement or idea from any counterexample by saying that that counterexample doesn't count. If you were to say men are protectors, for example, and then I say, well, what about all these men that aren't protecting, like right here? And you say, oh, those aren't real men. Real men are protectors. That's called the no true Scotsman fallacy. And you can do that until the cows come home. Real men do this, real men don't do that. And when somebody shows you an example of the opposite, you can just be like, no, that's not a man, that's a boy, or like anything like that. You see it a lot in Christianity. A lot of Christians believe that once you're Christian, you're never not a Christian. If you show them somebody who was Christian for like their entire life, once they leave the church, they'll go, oh, that wasn't a real Christian, because real Christians... You get the idea. This is usually used to protect our own personal headcanon, our own worldview. If you have an unshakable belief in the way something is in the world, then once you see an actual example that counters that, that can't be accepted as part of your worldview. So you have to exclude it. It's either exclude it or change your worldview. And a lot of people are not willing to change their worldview. But it's a fallacy because you can't use logic that ignores evidence. Like, no, those aren't boys, they're literally men. Like, I know it sucks, I know you don't want to hear that, those are men. Last one, another one that I run into all the time is the appeal to tradition. That is when you assert that the way you're doing things is the right way to do it because that's the way you've always done it. In conversations about patriarchy, this comes up a lot, like, men are the best ones to do this thing because men have always done this thing. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Men have also always thought that women pee and have babies out of the same hole, but that's not the case. So surprise, surprise. Just because it's the only way you know something to be doesn't mean that's the only way it can be. Just because it's the only way you've done it doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. You hear this a lot in conversations about patriarchy. You'll also hear it a lot when you talk about like defunding the police. A lot of parents have expectations of their children that they got from their parents, like generational trauma kind of stuff, and they pass those down because that's just always the way it's been. So yeah, when you say something's the best way to do it or the only way to do it and your reasoning for that is because that's the way we've always done it, that's an appeal to tradition. Sorry this video was so long. Thank you for watching.